Just after 9/11, a colleague of mine, Selçuk Şuran, who teaches at NYU, who was raised Muslim in Turkey, asked me if I would help him with focus groups with Muslim American young people, and I was appropriately reluctant. As a Jew, deeply involved in Palestinian struggles and in the Middle East, but also here involved in reimagining and remembering kind of a Jewish voice of justice. I was ambivalent to enter as a researcher, kind of documenting what's happening to Muslim Americans. It didn't feel like it was my community, etc. But Selçuk convinced me because I knew how to run groups. So we ended up doing a fair amount of research, again, not on, but with Muslim American young people right after 9/11.
I'm Sunni Muslim, which is you practice like the Sunnah, meaning the exact teachings of the Prophet Muhammad. Sunni Islam is what gets the most, the worst rap. It's considered like fundamentalist, and fundamentalist is like kind of a dirty word nowadays. Immediately after September 11th, it was definitely more tense. The environment was a lot more tense. I was with my mom, who was wearing like, full purdah and stuff, and it was kind of dangerous for her to be traveling alone. And there had been some experiences that she had where, she was sort of like physically threatened, but me personally, I haven't.
I've gotten another grant with another colleague, Thea Abu El-Haj, who's now at Barnard. So we've been interviewing Muslim American young people now, and the differences are devastating and striking. That is, the group that we interviewed in the early 2000s, again, were surprised to be excluded from the moral community of America. The group now, 18 to 24, they've grown up in Islamophobia. They've grown up kind of saturated in a set of reminders that their status here is provisional. So whereas in the early 2000s, we heard a lot of civic engagement and who better to educate people than me? I'm going to wear my hijab and educate people on the street even though they're saying nasty things. What I'm hearing now is a kind of retreat, a heightened sense of hate crimes, a concern for parents, as we heard in that film, particularly mothers who dress in more traditional garb, but really more on the street, on the subway, in the classroom, on the campus violence, verbal violence, Islamophobia. Some women are having hijab pulled off, but at the same time, a real reluctance to tell police, to tell teachers, to tell parents about these incidents. So in the matter of like a decade, we've created, our country has created a much more alienated group of young people, alienated from kind of the core beliefs of the United States, but also vibrant citizens who want to engage with other groups for social justice.
I never felt as though my Islam limited me. And to tell you the God's honest, when I'm going through any of my most hectic times, this is when I turn to my religion. And I've always felt like in order for me to really experience my religion to the full extent, I need to learn about what other people are on. And that's going to inform it, and that's going to make it more true, as opposed to just being a reaction to my upbringing. You have to own your own spirituality, like every single person does.
This question of the spiritual journey has impressed me and taken me by surprise. When we do research with these young people, we start with a method called mapping. So I just give them a blank piece of paper and magic markers, and I say, draw your many selves. Your Muslim self, your student self, your athlete self, your sexy self, your music self, your daughter, etc. And in our book, Muslim Americans, with NYU Press, we have many of the maps. Some of them, particularly from the young women, show kind of rivers of Muslim and American streaming together. And they talk about how in this country they can be young women in college who are both Muslim and American. Some of them have lines down the middle and say, boys and girls, I live in two worlds, but I can move between. And some have real conflict. There's one sketch in there by a young man, just his face with a line down the middle, a jagged line, and there's a tear coming from one eye, and it says Muslim and American, and he called it tears of racism. But in many of the portraits, Islam is at the center. And it's a kind of calming, foundational center that's grounding, that's spiritual. And again, I appreciate the question because they are separating spirituality from going to mosque, praying. You know, a lot of the young people say, I don't really like to go to mosque. It's old men, imam, who are so patriarchal, and they don't represent the kind of Islam that I appreciate. But I love Ramadan and Eid and my family's practices. But I haven't run into a group of young people who seem at once so in the world and so politically engaged and also so grounded in a spiritual practice about love and responsibility. And when I ask them about encountering discrimination, a lot of them refer to how Islam gives them, I think she referred to tools of spirituality.
I know that my parents, as much as they may just be disappointed by my lifestyle, they know that it's my way of, you know, reaffirming my sort of faith and answering these questions that I have. There's no free lunch. I have to figure it out for myself.